Welcome to Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie Valentine and the host of this podcast. I'm a physician, evidential psychic medium, international keynote speaker, and author of Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide. The inspiration for this podcast came from my own life experiences. As I have journeyed through life, it has taught me that we're part of a greater divine web of interconnectedness. I have walked the path of illness, healing, and transformation. After two near-death experiences, I became clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, and was guided to attend medical school at the age of 54. We will be meeting with many different types of doctors, healers, as well as spiritual leaders, educators, and other inspiring souls in this podcast. It is my hope that you will gain information and create a path to healing your own life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and bridge the gap between science and soul. If you are a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. Welcome to Dr. Lottie Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce Karen Herrick. Reverend Karen E. Herrick is the director of the Center for Children of Alcoholics Incorporated in Red Bank, New Jersey. After her master's degree in social work from Rutgers University, she originally began to educate families on the disease concept of alcoholism. Dr. Herrick developed a successful private practice, eventually seeing all types of people with psychological problems, including addictions. She wrote her book, You're Not Finished Yet, which encapsulates her private practice work, plus an additional 2 chapters on spirituality and spiritual experiences after she had a Holy Spirit experience during a holotropic breathwork training. During her therapeutic practice, she encourages some clients to visit with mediums to aid in handling their grief and loss of loved ones. She was ordained at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine and uses her Interfaith ministry to be actively involved in the spiritual psychology of William James, Carl Jung, and Abraham Maslow. Dr. Herrick attended more educational sessions in California through the Spiritual Emergence Network and eventually completed a PhD at the Union Institute and University in Cincinnati, Ohio. Her thesis was entitled Naming Spiritual Experiences. 75% of the 133 mental health professionals she researched stated that they believed further education regarding spiritual experiences, near-death experiences, and or afterlife experiences would be beneficial to them personally and professionally. She has completed requirements for certification with the American Center for Integration of Spirituality Transformative Experiences. The mental health professionals she researched indicated they needed more networking opportunities. She hopes to aid in a consensus that spiritual experiences are happening, which will increase discussion and raise the percentage of the population from 30 to 50% of having these experiences to well over the 50% mark. In doing so, she will bring the 1880s term sane hallucinations into the world of psychology in order that people will understand that healthy people have these experiences and they are not abnormal. Karen has appeared on several media outlets such as radio shows, podcasts, YouTube, as well as a speaker at conferences. She is also the author of 3 books, Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal, Grandma, What is a Soul? And You're Not Finished Yet. So a warm welcome to you, Karen. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to ask you all the questions I have written down here and to see what your answers are. And in your third book, The Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal, you mention that the vagus nerve, which is the 10th and the longest nerve in our bodies, as being a conduit of the energy and magnetism that we have in our bodies. Can you explain that?
Well, it is the 10th and longest nerve. So it starts at the top of your head, comes down and goes around your amygdala at the neck and down your spinal column, into your heart, and then down into your stomach. And the electromagnetic energy flows through the vagus nerve and touches most all of our organs. So it's very important. Darwin discovered it in the 1700s, 1780, I believe. And he said that it connected the stomach, the brain, and the heart. And it does. And I got interested in it because Dr. Stephen Porges wrote a book on it after 40 years of research. And it would help people with anxiety and panic. Because if you learn how to breathe properly with the vagus nerve, you breathe in to the count of 4 and breathe out on a longer out breath. It calms the nerve. And I started using that in my practice. And people, I mean, you could tell people to use the yoga breath or whatever kind of breath you want to call it. But when they realized they had this nerve, and I said, it's your job to calm this nerve down. And then you're going to be a happier person. And you're not going to be so, frightened of the future, and et cetera, et cetera. And they did it. So I got very interested in that.
Wow. And how do we know that most people will think of the body as, chemical reactions? How do we know that it is electromagnetic?
Well, I'm not sure that we do, but anything that I have researched says it is. So I can't prove to you it's electromagnetic, but electricity, we are an electrical machine, our bodies. And we have lots of chemicals, so chemicals could be involved in the whole situation. And as we talk about the soul, that could get more involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read about that too, that it's electromagnetic communication within the cells, not just biochemically. You also mention about Oprah and on one of her Super Soul Sunday shows, as well as Rachel Maddow, an American political commentator, both saying that they get good ideas in the shower. Does this have something to do with the vagus nerve?
Yes, it does. And I was sitting there, folding laundry or something on a Sunday, listening to Oprah, and she had been interviewing this spiritual person. And she said to him after about 40 minutes, well, how come I get good ideas in the shower? And he said he didn't know. And I perked up because I said, it's the vagus nerve. It goes around the amygdala, right? And so she says, somebody said it was because hot water's warm water's hitting my neck. And I said, yes, it's hitting your vagus nerve and the amygdala. And then one of my friends emailed me a couple of days later and said, Rachel Maddow says she has such good ideas in the shower, she doesn't want to get out. So, I mean, and lots of people, as I talked about that, said, oh, I get really good ideas in the shower. I had one doctor and he closed the door and he said, my wife gets the best ideas in the shower. And it had to be a secret, I guess. But so that's what that's exactly concentration on the back of the neck is the quickest way to control the nervous system of the body by spirits. So then we get into mediums and psychics and how they get their information. And most of them, and even your intuition. And if you hear, if you get a telepathic communication from somebody, it doesn't come into your ears, it comes on the side of your head or the back of your head. And so that's what it's all about. We do get intuitive thoughts that way.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because if I'm doing a reading for somebody and I'm working as a medium, the spirits always come, I would say, like a foot diagonally to the left in front of my face, but it's kind of like more on the side than it is on the front. So it's kind of on an angle. Yeah, that's right. And it's always on my left side. And I know other people say that they have, it always comes on the right, or if they have a place where the spirit comes in, and that's how I communicate. It's always up on to the left. So it's very interesting that you're doing research on all of these things. So Can you, so now that we're talking about the symbols and how mediums and psychics receive these symbols in the spiritual centers of the body, and they give us these intuitive steps about the different paths we may need to take to progress on our soul's journey. Can you explain more about what is our soul's journey?
Yeah, it's all the experiences we have in life. And most religions say that we have a soul, but they don't tell you what we're supposed to do with it. And so Carl Jung, who's my favorite psychiatrist and psychologist, said that you know, the soul was at the bottom of our unconscious, and the more work we did in therapy, the more the soul and the self would come up, and then our we would get our soul purpose. And he said that was the whole process of individuation, that we should know why we came into earth. And of course he believed in reincarnation, so why did we come in this time, right? And that we're supposed to find that out. So it's, you know, it's interesting. And of course for him, he integrated his unconscious and consciousness after Freud said he didn't want anything to do with him when he wrote a book and said he didn't believe that the unconscious was all tied up with sex. It had other things in there. Anyway, tell me the question again, because
yeah. So can you explain more about what is our soul journey?
Yeah, what is our soul's journey? So it is the experiences you have in life, and you learn from them. And when I first started out, my mom was Catholic, my father was Protestant. I was raised Protestant, and I didn't think God was really, you know, very concerned about our house because it was alcoholic. But so I didn't really believe there was a God. I believed in nature. I'm from upstate New York originally. It's a beautiful place, and I would walk in the woods, you know, and so nature was, I guess it was like an American Indian concept. That was my higher power. But and so as I married my high school sweetheart, and I had divorced him after about 9 or 10 years, and then I married somebody older who was alcoholic. And I said I was never going to be like my mother, who it seemed like she didn't talk to my father when he was sober, but she screamed at him when he was drunk. So I thought, and if I ever marry an alcoholic, I'm not staying, right? So of course, that's the situation that I got. That was my sole purpose. Was I going to leave this marriage, which was difficult with 3 girls? But I did it because every time I sounded like my mother, I went to a therapist. I just decided I've got to fix this somehow.
Yeah.
And so I have a chapter in the book is called The Ghetto House in Little Silver, which is a lovely town in New Jersey. But my daughter called it that when I left my marriage. And we, of course, had to step down in a socioeconomic system. And she said, it's a ghetto house and I'm not living there. And I said, well, I don't know where you're living because you have to come, to come with me. But while I was, and the house was put up for auction, and it was in 1980 and interest rates were 18%.
Wow.
And I was a housewife who hadn't worked in 10 years. And my ex-husband, who wasn't my ex-husband then, but very angry, gave me $10,000 to go buy a house. And he had forged my name to the company procedure and gotten all the money for the house. So I had to go to court to get my share. And so while I was waiting to do that, my friend kept saying to me, there's this house and, you know, you need to go look at it in her town. And I wanted to stay in the town I was in, just get a smaller house so the kids would keep their friends. Anyway, so I think she told me about it for a whole year. So it shows you that people are sent to you as angels to you know, show you the way. And sometimes you don't listen. Right. So, but I thought, she came finally and she said, you know, that house that I've been telling you about, it's going on up for auction. And I said, you know, I thought I have to look at this house. So and you only need $10,000 to bid. And that's what he had given me. Yeah. And so anyway, I went, put down my $10,000 and didn't know the whole procedure because I was practicing, because in 2 weeks, a house was going to come up in the town I wanted to live in. So anyway, we all go out in the lawn. It was a beautiful day. The house was, you know, in not the best shape, but anyway, so, and it was for sale for $129,000. And so I said, well, what's the procedure? And they said, well, we start at 100. So I thought, well, isn't this supposed to be a deal? 100's not a
Yeah.
deal, but I always said it doesn't matter. You're just practicing, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, he started 100, 100, and nobody bid, and he went to 50. So he goes 50, 55, 60, and then I'm thinking, boy, if you're going to practice, you might as well bid. So I said 65, and somebody said 70, and somebody said 75. And then I had this thought that was not my thought. I just know it wasn't. And it said, you don't have to bid in $5,000 increments. So I said 76. And he kept saying 80. And I said 76, 80, 76. And this voice came out of me. It was not my voice. And I said 76. And I thought, God, who said that? And he goes, 76. And then everybody stopped. It was like they had been bidding like it was Monopoly money, right? And then they realized this is real money. So somebody said 77, and I said 78. And then my equilibrium, I felt like I was going to faint. And I know that some spirit had come into me. I just know that. And I heard the word sold. So I looked around and nobody looked happy. I certainly didn't look happy. And they congratulated me on buying this house. Now, my saving grace was he had 3 days to whether accept it or reject the offer. And it was appraised at 89. So why would he accept less than the appraised value, right? So you have all of these concepts, and you just need to, when spirit wants to help you do something, none of that matters. It's really amazing. So in 3 days, he called, and I thought, oh, good, I'm going to get my $10,000 back. I can go bid on the house 2 weeks from now. And he congratulated me on buying a house. And I said, oh. And so anyway, he said, would I like to bring my daughters over to see it tonight? And I said, oh, no, not tonight, because it was a mess. So anyway, he said, well, what about Wednesday? I said, yeah, Wednesday be better. And I'm thinking Wednesday's not going to be any better. So anyway, when I took him over, my one daughter said, this is a ghetto house and I'm not moving here. And I thought, okay. She was not, the least of my problems, though, because I had to go to court to get money to pay for this now. And so moving day and court came on the same day. So she was 15. So she directed the movers that morning, and everything was all labeled and everything. And I went to court, and luckily I got my money. I mean, it's just amazed me when I think about it now, right? I just it was like putting your foot on the edge of a cliff and you just walked out. But spirit helped me. I just thought then it was luck. But
No.
then as I thought about it, and I wrote it for the book, I realized that my grandmother took me to auctions for the first 5 years of my life. And I had forgotten that. So you get these little pieces from your past that come. And I didn't think it was unusual to have a house at auction, but unconsciously, I must have known that I'd been to a lot of auctions. Anyway, so I just went, and they said, why did you even bid? Well, because I wanted to get this other house. So anyway, that's part of our journey, all these
Mhm.
different experiences. And then when you look back on them, you start to realize, as I became more spiritual, I thought, wow, that I did not say 78.
Right? Guided by spirit for sure.
Absolutely. It was
Right? And
wonderful.
everything falling into place, at the exact right moment in time. And we
Yes,
think that these are coincidences, but I've been on this journey myself, and it took me a long time before I realized that they are not coincidences. This is truly divine guidance that's happening. But we're so busy when we go through our life that we forget to tap into the divine existence that we are actually living our lives, and how we are so connected with our spirit guides on the other side without even knowing it. So
I
that's
know.
such a great story, such a great example of that, of being guided and your soul journey. I know that most religions say we have a soul, but they don't tell us what to do with the soul. Do you have a theory about where the soul is located in our physical body and how we develop it?
Well, yes, Carl Jung says it's located at the bottom of our unconscious. So I just put that in the bottom of your stomach, just because it's easier to think about your unconscious being there. And as you do your therapy work, you lower the layers that are in your unconscious, and then your soul self can come up and connect with your personality. And that's one thing that Oprah does talk about, and she did on that show too, that your soul and your personality need to be connected, because your soul really does have all of this possibilities and all this creativity and things that you don't even know how you know, right?
You're
and
right.
that, and that's what Plato said, right? We know more than we think we know, and he was right about that. So then when you connect your personality more with your soul purpose, like I went and I got with that house, at the end they said to me, and when I went to sign for it, the man, the realtor of the seller said, well, there's a 5 3/4 mortgage that you could assume. And I'm thinking 18% versus 5 3/4. Even I know that that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Do you want to assume it? Now, the owner didn't really want me to, because if I had negated that mortgage, then he would have to take it over. I said I would love it. And the money that was left over from that I didn't have to pay, I got my master's degree.
Oh, wow.
So, and then Jung believes chance rules, right? I
Mhm.
just took a chance and it was amazing.
And things just, they're meant to work out, they're going to work out.
That's right. That's right.
But it's difficult to have that faith. I think when people are going through difficult times, it's because it's almost you have to be brought to the edge of that cliff. And so now there is nothing else left but faith. And
That's
so
right.
it's all you could do was go with your faith and just pray that it was going to work out.
Well, I didn't
And
really have faith then. I thought it was luck,
you
you
thought
know.
it was luck back
But
then.
as I was,
Mhm.
as I got, more into being a social worker and having clients, and then I realized there was a God, and I had different experiences that are in the book that
Mhm.
explain how I came to that. And then now I have faith.
And I have faith.
Now I have faith because it's been proven.
Right. I hear you. So this astral etheric body
Yes.
that has been placed in our physical body at conception,
Yes.
what is the purpose of this astral etheric body?
Okay, so that's your second body, or your resurrection body. It has many names, and that's in the book also. And it's to contain your soul when the astral etheric body leaves your physical body. So when you die, that goes up, I believe, the vagus nerve and out the top of your head, and then you are deceased. When the silver cord is cut, it says in the Bible, you are deceased, you are dead. Now, you also can go out of your body in an out of body experience, in a near death experience, right? And they say that we leave our body at night many times, and that our astral etheric body, just if we're laying horizontally on the bed, that's lying horizontally over our head, over our body. And then when we have a good night's sleep, then that way, and it comes back in the morning, you have a lot more energy, because it's like a battery, your astral body. But really, the whole purpose of it is to take your soul to the other side.
Fascinating. And that we sort of step out when we're sleeping to
That's what they
recharge
say.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Um,
never had that experience, but I mean, I believe it.
yeah. You also discuss about people who have near-death experiences, and that once they return to Earth, some of them have trouble breathing through their nose. Why would that be?
They don't breathe through their nose. Yes. Okay. Well, I think when you're up there flying around, a lot of near death people say we don't have a silver cord, but I think they're busy. And why are they looking at the back of their neck anyway? But something pulls them back in. They don't know what it is. So they do have this cord that then comes back into the vagus in the body. So tell me again, what did you ask?
Yeah. So why do some people that have had near-death experiences
Oh,
they have
can't breathe.
problem breathing through their
Yes.
nose?
Well, because they come back, and what happens is maybe they're driving down Broad Street in Red Bank, and they're not breathing. They realize they're just not breathing. And well, if you're not breathing, you die. That's an earth rule. So anyways, they pull over, maybe meditate, pound on their chest, do something to get the breath to come back through their nose. And PMA Chatwater is the one who told me this. She said, Karen, you have something here, because so many people, when they come back, they have this problem, and they panic because they think they're going to die. So my idea is that when they, anything I've read, when they go up there, they're breathing with their whole body. And then when they come back in, the pineal gland, people have said that when they come back into their body, the pineal gland clicks when they leave and clicks when they come back in. And then we have a medulla oblongata. And I have in my book here, and I have to read it because I never can memorize this. But the medulla oblongata, if you look at the picture of my book, there's a red bulb in your head. And it has involuntary functions, which are done without thought, just physically. And we would not be able to live without the medulla because of the myriad of crucial tasks it performs, including regulating blood pressure and cardiac breathing. And as a part of the brain stem, it also helps transfer neural messages from the brain to the spinal cord. Well, I had a client, and I called this a chapter in the book, The Making of a Medium. And so when I went up to Lilydale, which is a town that has mediums and psychics living there by Lake Erie in New York, I found this picture of the human channels of psychic energies, and also pictures of this woman dying and this cord at the back of her neck and at her stomach as she's going up to meet her, loved ones. And I'm thinking, that's the vagus nerve. I just know that, right? And so anyway, so I get this picture because I do a lot of research on her, and in one library, she wrote this little booklet, but I don't think she ever sold any. But she wrote articles from the little booklet for Psychic Observer, which was a magazine that came out twice a month. The problem with the Psychic Observer was it was printed on newspaper, so we don't have a lot of those. But at the museum, at the library where I talked to this gal, she got me a lot of articles that were written by Clara Barnett. And so she's the lady that gave us this picture. And she had a control named Dr. Jensen from Sweden. And he told how you leave, the vagus nerve and the silver cord and all of that. And he talked about the human channels of psychic energy, which are really, they start at the base of your spine, and there's 7 of them. And the last one is at the top of your head. And that's where we get all the different messages, and how psychics can do trance control, and they can do automatic writing. And because all of these different spiritual centers are where spirits come in.
So interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, you don't think about it working as a medium, or you just get the information, but how do I get it?
Well, I know. And that's really the problem, that everybody looks at me like, why do you even care? Right? But I really do, because in all my years, 30-some years of working with clients, I've explained the unconscious to them, and the 5 layers of the unconscious. And this is how we do the work. And I think because they have a diagram in their head about the unconscious, they do their work, right? Mm-hmm. So why can't we give them a diagram of how this happens? And I'm doing this survey we're going to talk about in a little while with mediums and psychics. And so I want to get 500 people to answer the survey. And right now, the last time I checked, I had 100. And so out of those 100, 83% say they were born with this gift. So I asked that question, are you born with it, or did you get it as a result of a spiritual experience or in your death experience or whatever? And that's another thing people need to know. It's a gift. Just like St. Paul said in the Bible, it's a gift. Some people have different gifts. And I think if more people knew that, they would respect it more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Like for me, my mediumship came after my near-death experiences, but I've been told looking back and thinking back, there were times I would see colors around people as a child, or
Yes.
see things that I couldn't explain. And then it sort of gets suppressed because you're a teenager and you're trying to blend in and not be different.
Yes.
And I have stories in my book about, telling my friend, do you see this? Do you see the energy field around the flowers? And she's looking at me, no, there is nothing there. Right. And then it's just like, you just get cut off right there. You're like 8, 9 years old. Okay, I'm not talking about this anymore.
That's
And
right.
so even if you were born with it, you learn to suppress it. And what's really funny about these experiences, so this is my best friend that I grew up with. We have known each other since birth.
Yeah.
And after med school, I got sent to Arthur Findlay College, and I
Oh,
studied
great.
mediumship. And then, of course, that same summer, 3 months later, I'm in Sweden, and I haven't seen her for years because I've been busy raising children. She's been busy raising children. And I tell her about my first experience at Arthur Findlay College. And I said, you won't believe it. You can actually call in spirits for other people, right? Not just, you have your relative or your uncle or your grandfather come visit you, which makes sense, right?
Yes.
And she said, I have to go, she says. And
Oh,
she told
really?
me, she told me about how her mom had passed away, and towards the end, she had out of body experiences. And she told my friend, she said, I was told that it's not my time yet. I have to put my papers in order. And she did, and she put all her papers in order. And then a few months later, she passed. And so my friend, who had become a nurse and worked with a lot of people and HIV and AIDS and all that, watched a lot of dying in her work. Also, the next time I went, she went. So we have gone through Arthur Findlay College together now. And of course, she became an amazing medium as well, without ever having had a near-death experience or anything. Because, but it's this ability that many of us have, or a gift that some are supposed to develop in our life. Not everybody's supposed to become a medium that's working with
Right.
other people, but I think we all have intuition to develop to a certain capacity,
I
whatever
agree.
that
Yeah.
capacity is in this life. We all have an intuitive ability of um of doing these things, and I know you're going to talk more about that. But when we talk about near death experiences, what other types of spiritual experiences do people have that our listeners may be interested in?
Right. Well, they can have past life memories. After the Titanic, I had a client come. She was hysterical. I died on the Titanic, and so we learned a lot about the Titanic. But different things that people believe, where they lived before. An awakening of ESP, are communicating with spirits, and deceased loved ones, and after death communication, which they talk a lot about, and that series on TV, on
Oh,
Netflix, Surviving Death.
Surviving Death. Yes, one of
Everybody
my
should watch.
teachers was, yeah, one of my teachers from Arthur Findlay was in there.
Was in it. Wasn't that good?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, it
everybody
was
needs to
great.
watch that, right?
Yeah.
And then synchronistic events, which Carl Jung talked about. And, synchronistically, my friend keep telling me to go look at that house and, all that. And I finally did after a year. But so all these different types, and just developing your intuition and getting more intuitive, which sometimes scares people.
Yes, it used to scare me.
I bet.
Right.
Yeah.
And that especially before I had my near death experiences, because I didn't believe in any of these things. I didn't believe in spirituality. I did not believe in God or angels or afterlife communication or spirit surviving, soul surviving the death of the body. And any kind of event like that would scare me, because that it was just scary. I didn't know how to handle it.
I
And
think
it
it's
is it
great
is
that
interesting,
that you
right?
got your gift.
Right.
And another thing I think people should know, is I've been reading Lawrence LaShawn, and he was a great psychologist, but I didn't know that he wrote all these books on paranormal. And then he got, no respect. So he learned how to do healing. And he taught that for a while, I think he just passed last December. But anyway, he talks about metaphysical, 3 different realities that we have. And it's not the first time I've heard it, but for some reason it really clicked this time, that we have the sensory reality. You and I are speaking tonight,
Mhm.
and everybody's listening to this in the sensory world when they listen. And then we have a clairvoyant reality where all of these different things happen. And then we have a take called a transpsychic reality, which I would call the transpersonal reality, where miracles happen. And those three realities are always working. So you can see your deceased father in the bedroom, all the electric lights that go on and off, all that happens. And it's in the clairvoyant reality that happens. And, I go to, I used to go to a lot of psychics, and that's how I got interested in all this. And I'm driving home one day from the psychic, and I'm thinking, how come you feel so happy? Because you have no idea what's going to happen. That what she told you is going to happen. Now, I'd been there a few times. Some of it will happen, but you're so happy. Why are you happy? So I'm thinking of, well, I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I go to psychics. And I had no answer, right? Well, he told me, he said, now how we get from the sensory to the clairvoyant reality is 4 ways. And he said tarot cards, the I Ching, astrology, and numerology. So, I always do my astrology chart, and I can do numerology, and tarot cards are wonderful. The I Ching I haven't played with, but I did play with it, but I don't, do it a lot. But he said, you make an appointment, like somebody makes an appointment to see you. That's in the sensory reality. And, and so they're safe, and they go with an expectation that you're going to tell them something good because they have questions. That's why they're going. And so you have this expectation you're going to get answers, and you get answers, right? And they come from the clairvoyant reality, and you're in the now. Now, that's what I didn't know, but you're in the now, in the clairvoyant reality, meaning there's no past, present, or future. You're just there. And there's so few times in our sensory reality where we're in the now, because in the sensory, it's past, present, and future. So
Yes.
I just love that. And if they realize there is this clairvoyant reality where all these possibilities are, and that's exactly what we get when we go to a medium or a psychic or an astrologer or a numerologist, we get, possibilities for our life.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And it's fascinating that you say, the now doesn't have a past, present, or future because it's just the now. And when I had my near-death experience, there was no time on the other side.
No.
And I was obsessed with figuring that out, and proving it with physics. I read all these crazy books. And now it doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm like, no. There just isn't any time on the other side. It's just how we live in the earthly realm. We need that time. But I know you also talked about that. You talked about how you came from an alcoholic family.
Yes.
And why would people coming from these types of homes have more of these kind of spiritual experiences?
Because they come from an alcoholic or dysfunctional family, and that's where your emotional needs weren't met. You had lots of horrible things happen to you. Maybe you were beaten, maybe your parents were, one was beating the other, incest, all these things, trauma. And because of the trauma that you lived in those homes, you were able to disassociate easier. So if you now have a car accident, or you're on the table at a hospital having a heart attack, you're going to disassociate easier than people who didn't live with that trauma. So it's almost a gift of living in dysfunction that you can disassociate easier than other people.
Right.
And you don't even know you did that. You just thought it was staring out the window in math class and thinking about being at the beach, right?
Right. Yeah, that is fascinating. But it would maybe trigger more events like that for people living in trauma during childhood, because they're trying to cope with the situation that they're in.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they develop these skills in a different way than a child who is just happy playing.
Yes.
That doesn't have that same need of removing themselves from the situations. So that's fascinating. And all these people that are listening, they should just, explore their abilities, their psychic abilities. Yeah. I know you mentioned that about a survey that takes about 5 or 10 minutes that you would like mediums and psychics to take in order for you to better understand through your research how to help explain how their knowledge comes to them. How would a psychic or medium that is listening to this podcast get a link to this survey if they wanted to help you with your research?
Yes, they would just email me at Karen@KarenHerrick.com. And so it's Karen, Karen, and Herrick is Herrick. So Karen@KarenHerrick.com, and then just put survey research in the subject line. You don't have to talk to me unless you want to, because I know your time is valuable, but I have questions about how you do get this information, and I'm hoping to get 500 people. And people that are interested, they can go on and they would just check the other box, not a psychic or medium. So you wouldn't mess up any of my research from psychics and mediums if you're just curious.
Okay, that's great. And also, I understand you have a copy of your human channels of psychic energies. It's a
Yes,
sheet that you've been speaking about. How did they get a copy of that sheet?
they could just email me the same email address,
Okay.
Karen@KarenHerrick.com, and then just put that you want the human channels flyer, and I'll
Okay.
send that to you.
The human channels flyer.
Right.
Okay. And I'll put this in the podcast notes too. So if you can't find it, go to the podcast notes, and her email address and website will be in the notes as well. So I want to thank you so much, Karen, for coming on the podcast today and sharing all your wisdom with the listeners. It's been fabulous.
Oh, it's been fun for me. I love doing this. It's so nice that people want to hear it.
I love it. So thank you so much again for being
You're
a
welcome.
guest.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Dr. Lottie Science with Soul. To stay up to date on future episodes and to help us reach a larger audience, remember to subscribe, review, and share this podcast. If you're a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. My book, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, is available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide.